The company that provides residential trash pickup in Evansville is in contract talks with its union workers. Officials with Republic Services were expected to meet 3 times this week with representatives of Teamsters Local 215. Joining me now is John Webb of the Evansville Courier and Press. He's covering the situation for the CNP. John, as always, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. All right, well, let's talk about the drivers here locally for Republic Services. They're currently working without a contract, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, local union president Earl Brown told me that expired a couple months ago. He couldn't remember exactly the month, but they ratified their last one back in 2022. So they're working in what he called good faith, hoping that some good can come out of the negotiations they're having with Republic right now.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, they were supposed to meet 3 times this week. Can you tell us what the union members are seeking?
Just basic stuff. You know, he didn't divulge a lot of what they're looking for in the contract, and that's probably a negotiation tactic. You want to keep certain things in between you and the talks. But, just the basics of anyone who's ever been in a union or anyone who's ever look for a better job. You want better pay and better benefits, and that's what they're doing. He said that the pay for the drivers lags a little bit behind the union average and the national average, so they're trying to get that bumped up a little.
I noticed in your story you mentioned that lag. Do we know how big of a lag that is?
No, he didn't say. Again, we didn't get into too details because they're in the early process of the talks. But yeah, it just falls behind. That's the case with a lot of jobs in Evansville and the state average too. We lag behind nationally, and I'm sure they want to close that gap.
Yeah. I'm guessing the argument might be that the cost of living is less here than it is in some places.
Well, yeah, but the cost of living's going up, and there's inflation, and so getting a bump in pay after 3 years would be pretty standard stuff.
Right. Well, how has the company responded so far about the situation?
They responded with a pretty boilerplate, response. Didn't really answer the questions I asked them directly. It's just they said that we respect the rights of our employees to engage in collective bargaining and are meeting with the union later this week to negotiate a contract that is beneficial for our employees, our customers, and our company. And they left it at that.
Yeah. Eventually, basically saying, we're fine with the talks, but not much beyond that. So at this point, I know this is difficult information to try to get. Do we know where the negotiations stand?
We know that they met Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Okay.
So anyone who's been in union talks before, that intensive a meeting, I'm not sure how long they met, but, those 3 days in a row seem to indicate that they're having some serious discussion. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if things weren't going well at all, they wouldn't have come back for a second or a third day, right?
I wouldn't think so. And things are for other unions who work with Republic, things have fallen apart across the country. So I imagine there's a wish here to keep that from happening and just get the best deal for the drivers.
Sure. This is the Friday Wrap on WNIN. We're speaking with John Webb of the Evansville Courier and Press. You can read this story and all his stories at courierpress.com. We're talking about contract negotiations underway with union workers and officials with Republic Services. That's the company that picks up residential trash here in Evansville. And John, you alluded to situations across the country. You mentioned in your story that there is a strike underway in Boston, correct?
Yeah, in the Boston area, several of the small communities around the city. It's been going on, I think when I wrote this story, that was, Tuesday? It was entering its 7th day, so that would be its 10th day now.
So a week and a half.
Yeah, and this morning I was reading online, they've actually brought in a federal mediator that talks in the Boston area to try to keep that going, because it is the officials there of the smaller little communities around Boston have called it a public health emergency. I mean, stuff's just stacking up, and it may not be quite as hot up there as it is here, but it's still dead of summer.
Yes,
not a good time to have trash piling up on the street.
Certainly not. And of course, that brings the question to mind. In fact, listeners have probably been waiting for this question. Do we have any indication that there's any chance of a strike here in Evansville?
Earl didn't say anything along those lines to me. All he talked about was they're getting into the talks. They did late last month have what they call a practice picket outside Republic, where they would kind of run through what they would do if there was a strike. There's another Teamsters branch in Southern California, just outside of Los Angeles, that authorized a strike. I guess that would have been a couple weeks ago, if necessary, to go forward. As far as I can tell, that has not happened here, and it would not be a good outcome for residents, although I imagine the union would only do it if they deemed it absolutely necessary to do so.
And you mentioned that practice picketing that went on here in Evansville. That was done right in front of the company, right? That sends a pretty direct message.
Yeah, June 24th, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the folks looking out from the company would see that going on. Let's talk a little bit about the job. It's one of those jobs that I'm sure a lot of us take for granted. Sanitation workers, they say it's a dangerous job. What are the dangers that these workers face?
Earl brought that up to me when we were talking, and like you said, I don't think it's something that people think about, but obviously if you just think about it for a few seconds, it's clear it is a dangerous job. I mean, for one, anybody who works along the roads all day, it's dangerous. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, sanitation workers and people who pick up trash, they have the 4th highest fatality rate as of 2023 of any job in the country. One of the main concerns that the union members have here locally and elsewhere are it's just basic people getting hit by cars. They're hanging off the back of the truck. That huge arm comes down from the truck to pick up your trash barrels and empty them out, but still they have to get off the truck sometimes. They have to. Right. And so anytime you're working along the roadway, that's dangerous. And of course, there are other aspects of the job, I imagine, that are dangerous as well. Anytime you're working with trash compactors and heavy machinery. Heavy trash receptacles, all that stuff. Do we know what the next steps are at this point? No, I plan to call him next week and see if there were any movements on the talks. Usually when they ratify a contract, they're very good about letting the public know what's happening. One thing he did talk about was this is one of those jobs that really keeps the city humming. Sure. I mean, if let's say you forget to put out your trash barrel for 1 week, and then you've got just a week's worth of trash, stacked up, and you can't wait to get rid of it. There's no sign locally that there will be a strike, but in these communities across the country, these people have the trash piled up on the street. It smells. The local communities there are having to open places for people to haul it off themselves, which not everyone has the ability to do. Sure. It's one of those things we do take for granted, but it's a public utility, just like water or heat or anything else. Yeah.
Do we know regarding the local negotiations, is there any kind of a deadline?
No, we haven't talked about that yet. They had their talks last week, and this is just basic union negotiation. They've done it before. Republic's had the contract with the city for years. The Teamsters been here they've been here for decades. Sure. So no deadline yet. Updates that will be forthcoming. I plan to give them a call next week and see what's what. I'm sure people will be interested.
You said the last contract was approved in 2022. So
2022, yeah.
Oh, so they're 3-year contracts?
The last one was, yeah. And that's with union contracts, that's 2 to 3 years, pretty basic. So I'm not sure if they're going for a 3-year again, but yeah, the last one was 3 years, and I looked in previous negotiations they'd had, and 3 years is pretty standard.
Pretty much the usual. Yeah. Okay. Well, John, anything else to add that we haven't touched on here?
I don't believe so. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens up in Boston and see if any strike takes place in Southern California. That might be a good tenor of how the talks are going with Republic.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Something to keep an eye on, again, as we monitor these talks between Republic Services and the Teamsters Local 215. Republic Services, the company that picks up residential trash here in Evansville, the trash pickup every week. Oh, that is John Webb of the Evansville Courier and Press. You can read this story and other stories at courierpress.com. John, as always, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate the update. Thank you very much.